if you didn't know, Jerry Spindle, who has the glasses in the movie and has the red ink, and I think he's supposed to be blind in the movie, if I remember right. And Leo DiCaprio did another movie after this, and it was after the Titanic, The Beach.
Oh,
so there you go. If you want to know some little trivia, they did do another movie together, The Beach, if you're interested.
I'll have to check it out.
Of course, with Doctor Strange coming up, we had to talk a Sam Raimi movie.
Yeah, and I this was a choice for myself here because I was just kind of like trying to pick like a different kind of Sam Raimi movie. We already know about his superhero stuff. We know about his Evil Dead stuff, and trust me, we'll get to it one day.
Yeah, we have to, because 1992 when the Army of Darkness came out.
Oh, absolutely.
30 years old.
Yeah. But I was like, let's find something a bit different, and I was picking this movie as I was about to leave for Arizona, and I was maybe going to get a chance to check out Tucson Studios.
See, yeah.
There's a lot of elements at play here. I'll be real with you.
Give me a break. I know you picked it because Tobin Bell is in this, and you like Saw. Yeah, he's in this one.
Oh, fantastic. We're going to talk about quick people, dead people, and everything in between. Join us today. And welcome back to the show. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast. Thanks for watching. Thanks for finding us. And for our loyal fans, thank you for continuing to support the show. We're on Twitter and on Instagram. Check that out for details. Today we're going to talk about Sam Raimi's only Western he ever did. How quick is that?
Yeah. You okay, or are you dead?
Okay, so Quick and the Dead, what is going on?
Yeah, so when a gunslinger known as the Lady enters a small dusty town of Redemption, she rides with vengeance. The town is set to have a quick-draw dueling competition held by Redemption's ruler, Herod. While Herod has a nefarious purpose for the contest, several gunfighters, including the Lady, have come with their sights set on Herod. Let the shooting begin.
Okay, I want to talk the technical stuff, right, because we'll get to Sam Raimi and why, that stuff. But the technical, it was written by Simon Monroe. Also did the stage version of Misery.
Okay.
And then the cinematography is another one. Of course, Daniel Spinotti. We already did L.A. Confidential and Manhunter. This is another one of his cinematography movies.
Yep.
Greatly shot. It looks authentically spaghetti western, very dry and dusty and orangey. Production design, which I really think it really excels in production design, is Patricia Van Brandenstein, who was an Oscar winner for Amadeus and The Untouchables, another movie we talked about, Untouchables, which had great production design.
Yeah.
And so when you get all that, and then Sam Raimi show up with a lot of supporting cast, I think you're going to win, even though this is not the greatest movie of all time, but it's far entertaining to watch.
Yep. There was a Western Tales from the Crypt episode. And there was also a War Tales from the Crypt episode. I know the War episode was called Yellow. Okay. There was these like genre episodes of Tales from the Crypt that never leaned into horror straight up, but they leaned into other genres where we can find horror. That's what this movie feels like to me. It feels like a Tales from the Crypt movie, almost, without any supernatural elements. It's just shot like with that kind of Raimi-esque, Evil Dead look to him. I think about that one scene right before the first, I think it's before the first gunfight, which is that racking shot where the camera twists at you like 5 times and it shows the different people watching and then it like zooms in on the towers that's about to click there. This movie oozes Raimi. Absolutely. Maybe more so than most of his other popular films. Is because it
feels like it doesn't sit still, right?
Yeah, it's very nervous all the time. I love it.
Now, as a kid, I was kind of get a chuckle out of this because Gene Hackman did this movie after he did Unforgiven, where he was I think he got nominated. I think he won for Unforgiven. Yeah. But here, obviously, he does another bad guy in a Western, but I think he understands what it's all about. It's not the deep and depth character of Unforgiven. You're supposed to have a little bit of fun with this. And I think Gene Hackman has had a little too much fun with this.
I don't blame him. I'm all for it.
I think he's enjoying it. I think that's the whole part of this movie. It's enjoying to watch, and everybody's enjoying making this movie. And it's not going to win screenwriting of all time. It's not going to win best cinematography, but even though it's really well, it's a great popcorn movie.
It is one of the best popcorn Westerns.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't sit still. Westerns are kind of known for their man with no name like characters walking into a town and usually walking softly and slowly. Like it's about the drug outness of the whole thing. And I think that this film takes the conventions and doesn't flip them on their head, but just kind of shifts them a little bit here and there. We get a little shift this way, we get a little shift that way. You know, the idea of it maybe doesn't seem as big of a deal now, but I'm sure back in '95 it probably meant something that our lead gunslinger was a lady. Named the Lady.
It was really refreshing.
Yeah.
It was really new, something new to add into it.
Yeah.
And of course, this is Sharon Stone coming out of Basic Instinct. And film producer's like, what do you want to do next? And she's like, I want to do a Western.
And I applaud her for, like, she made a lot of the creative choices at play here. She was kind of like Steve McQueen during The Getaway. Like, she wasn't heavily invested. She paid Leonardo DiCaprio's salary because the studio didn't want him. She paid it out of pocket so that he could be in the movie because she really wanted DiCaprio in this movie. She might actually have been one of the springboarding people to really get him in the kind of level he's at. Because we'd mentioned before, he hit it big with, Gilbert Grape, but at the same time, it's a small role, whereas this is a poppy role. This is what probably got him to Titanic and then everything else.
My theory is his success is kind of written off that River Phoenix is gone.
Yeah.
Because a lot of movies I see that he does, I would totally see River Phoenix doing. Right. So it's kind of macabre to say that once River Phoenix is gone, that Leonardo's stock rises up because I think he's very much similar.
That's interesting, yeah. But Stone also, she was the one who pushed for Russell Crowe, who had not done an American film yet.
No, this is his first one, right?
She was the one given a list of possible directors with Sam Raimi's name on it, and she sent back just Sam Raimi is the one she approved. That's all. Like, she pushed heavily for him because she was a fan of Army of Darkness, which I think is kind of funny that you see that movie and you think, that guy's going to make my Western. But there's something she put a lot of the big choices at play here, and even though I think her performance is maybe not the greatest of the movie, but I got to give her a lot of credit for putting together a hell of a good crew.
Right, yes, and we understand everybody knows their thing. They understand they're not supposed to take it so much serious as much as we seem like in Unforgiven or something like that.
You don't hire Sam Raimi for your serious,
And I love Gene Hackman when he plays the bad guy. Even the overly bearing bad guy that rules over the town like with an iron thumb, which is like it's almost like Ben Gazzara from Roadhouse almost. Like,
it is. I never thought about it like that, but you're right. This is a Western remake of Roadhouse.
You just squeeze it out till you can't get enough, and you complain that you can't get enough out of them. And you wonder why people don't leave.
Yeah. It's not
a walled-in community, right?
Yeah.
I talked about a lot of things, the accolades for the technical support, and I really did enjoy the performances. I did like action when I was a kid, but now going back, I love the supporting cast. This is part of the more interesting part of it now is to look at all the people that were the supporting cast of this movie.
It's one of the best casts of
roles?
any movie.
Yeah.
Like, just everyone in there. And, like, I know you're joking about me loving Tobin. He's really great, Tobin Bell, for what he's supposed to do in the movie. Lance Henriksen is ace. Like, he perfected that card trick and everything. Like,
very much like Richard Harris in Unforgiven, who's a little more, I'm the greatest thing in the world.
Oh, yeah. And then Keith David, the hired gun that's been hired by the townspeople to go in and kill Herod. Like, all of these people, I mean, I even joked, Gary Sinise is such a small character in the film that you could have given that role to virtually anybody. But we have a solid actor playing that role in a couple of flashbacks just to give a little bit of gravitas.
It's a little bit playing off Forrest Gump, because this is after Forrest Gump, and I know everybody that my age when we saw Quick and the Dead were like, that's Lieutenant Dan.
Yeah.
But you already have some sympathy for Gary Sinise as a character, and I think if you show what Gary Sinise is, what happens to him, it kind of psychologically gives you more, oh, man.
I mean, Apollo 13, he loses his chance to go to space. Forrest Gump, he loses his legs. Now he loses, his head. He's lost a lot in film.
And also, like Keith David, who's been in, like The Thing. He's been around since 1982 in the early 80s, and here he's doing, like, he nails it right away. But also the referee, which is Pat Hingle.
Yeah, our Commissioner Gordon, our original. Well, not our original, but like our original film one, really.
The film guy, yeah.
It's a very well-placed cast. Roberts Blossom is in the film as Doc Wallace. He's the doctor that's checking everyone to make sure they're dead. The creepy guy from Home Alone, if you will. The guy who sells Christine. Like, he's such a genre actor again that when I saw him, I was like, that can't be him. Is that really going to be him?
Like Nick Garris, who's a filmmaker himself.
And Nick Garris, one of my favorite directors of Stephen King work, because he's done a ton of it. And what I think is so great was I watched the film. I actually tweeted at Garris. We had a conversation about him appearing in the film, and then I realized, too, that he was making his version of The Stand at the same time, which starred Gary Sinise and featured Sam Raimi in a supporting role. So there was like a...
Probably met on a set.
Yeah, there was like a kinship to these masters of horror always working together, which I love. So very, very fantastic cast. Even the small actors up to the big ones. I mean, Keith David doesn't get a lot of screen time, but he chews that
dinner scene.
I love that scene where he's like, I can't wait to kill you, basically just saying right to his face, I'm going to be the one who does it.
And only Gene Hackman could say it back to him. I'm going to make an example of you after dinner.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
This is a movie where everyone understands the movie they're in. They are all working together to give the same vision. Like, again, Dante Spinotti does incredible cinematography in L.A. Confidential, but it's not the same cinematography he's putting forth in this film. And in that film, he understands we're making it kind of look like a classic 30s, 40s, and 50s movie. Yeah. We're giving it, kind of like that Technicolor.
Well, it's spaghetti westerns. I know you haven't seen one yet. Spaghetti western. But
it's very
okay, but it's got very like over exaggerations of western, over exaggerations of characters.
Yeah, and being able to utilize just simple things like the bullet holes actually making a hole in someone is kind of fun. That like fun goofiness to it that I think is really interesting. And you have to stand out from the crowd because at the time that this movie was being filmed, there were 12 Hollywood westerns being made during this time period, to the point where some of them weren't able to get costumes because they were being used on other films. There was a major western costume shortage at this time. So you had to stand out in the crowd.
Well, in the mid-'90s, you understand country music had a big upswing.
Yeah.
It's very popular. So
I think it was kind of the 90s, like the 90s had a death of westerns that I think it resurged back in like the mid-2010s.
2010s. We talk about like grunge and everything, but country music was hitting it everywhere.
Don't tell my heart about it.
But also, like Sam Raimi maintained visual effects. I've written down. William Meza still did visual effects for he did for all the horror movies he did with this movie as well. So there's a lot of almost the family's back together. And we talked about Bruce Campbell's on set and his scene gets cut.
Yeah.
So
that breaks my heart though. I would have loved to see. I kept waiting. I was like, when's he going to show up in the movie? Because I don't really remember him being in it from the first time I saw it. But I was like, I was younger then. I was more naive. And yeah, his scenes got cut. It's just a damn shame.
But it really works for what it is. It's not going to be really fantastic writing, but you get the great sayings, you get the catchy dialogue, you get very much the Sam Raimi when the kid versus Herod, which is Gene Hackman, and that's supposed to be his kid. But you get the camera go, ooh, and they go, ooh, far back, which is Sam. Sam's telling, I gotta have my signature.
Yep, I gotta have my. Well, I called it the drunken cameraman movement, where it's like, kind of like coming up at you like that. What I think is interesting too is that we talked about recently about the film In a Valley of Violence, and I criticized in that film that I didn't feel like the town in that movie felt like a valley of violence, because there was really one dirtbag in that town.
Right.
Like, it's not an entire town full of danger, it's one jerk. This is a movie where I felt like the town was dangerous. The town had a bunch of villainy to it. It wasn't just Gene Hackman. There are bad guys all over the place. It's just a question if he's the lead bad guy. I felt like the town has its own style, has its own character to it, and it makes it more fun to spend time there because of the gigantic cast. I would have spent time watching a 90-minute movie about almost any of them.
Yeah, I would like to see the outtakes of it. Yeah. And when I talk about Gene Hackman's character, like intent, it's a contest. It's a shooting contest where who is the quickest, but you're not supposed to kill each other, and then he, of course, he's going to escalate. But there's a reason for it. He's stationary his ground and has everybody come compete. And he talks about it. He goes, why we're having this? I'd rather have the bad guys come to me rather than me seeking them out. Come to me, we'll have this contest and see who's the best, and I know I'm going to be the best. And it's almost like Jackie Gleason, Minnesota Fats, in The Hustler, where he establishes ground.
Oh, yeah.
And you want to beat me, come to my place.
Why should I go to you?
Why should I go to you? Come to me and set up the stakes, and I'll beat your butt, and off you go. So it's very much like the bad guy plants his feet, come beat me.
Well, and what's great, too, is this is not hinted at a lot, but the idea, I love that every character has a motivation to why they would enter the fight, because it's a dangerous fight. You very well could die even if there was a no-killing to it. Yeah. You're going to get shot. You are going to get infected with something afterwards. Like, I love that, a lot of people are coming to town for Herod, of course. But I like that Herod, too, has his own reasoning, not just to be the best or to fight the guys. He wants to get Russell Crowe's court out in the open and have a legal way to kill him.
And I like why we call Russell Crowe's character Court.
Yeah.
We'll have Court, and then Court's there. Bad guy is in chains and has to deal with the weather also. Yeah. For a lot of the scenes, it is very wet out there. Sam Raimi did like to shoot in the rain with this.
Well, yeah, and there's what's great is that there's that great scene where she's facing off against Tobin Bell's character. It feels like every gunfight feels like its own thing. It doesn't feel like they're all part of it. It's kind of like if you do a martial arts movie, you have to have each fight be distinct.
Yeah.
The gunfights are all distinct. There's the one in the rain. There's the one that's got the heavy rack focus. There's the one where the guy's head explodes. Like, there's each of these gunfights have a very signature style to them.
Right.
And it makes the film very entertaining for a movie that sounds so repetitive. I remember trying to sell this to a friend of mine a couple years back and saying, no, it's about a movie that has a quick draw gunfight contest. And he's like, and that's a good Western? I was like, I know it doesn't sound great. Watch the movie.
Right, and I think that's what kind of irks a little bit is because it feels like it's so generic. But if you say it's a Sam Raimi film, that maybe people kind of gravitate towards that. Because you understand a lot of the, like, why we have to have the clock. It's almost like Back to the Future Part 3.
Yeah.
The clock, and why do you have to shoot out with the clock, and why are so, well, it explains it why we have to sell so many scene with the clock.
Yeah.
Right. We're going to blow up the set, of course. But it's Kurt's character that tells him how you're going to defeat him.
Yep.
Is you're going to show him that he's a human being and you have to scare him. And if you don't scare him, you're not going to win. And I think that's what Ellen's character, Sharon Stone, knows what she has to do. She almost has to say that she's invincible to finally defeat him.
I mean, there's a subtle character like arc going on where it doesn't feel like it's hitting you over the head with it. No. But we're just, every time we get through one of these fights, we learn a little bit more about our principal cast, the ones that are remaining, and we slowly whittle down who's left. It's kind of like it's almost like a slasher movie. We're whittling down one person at a time out of the group, you know, as we try to find, instead of trying to find the killer, we're trying to find a way to kill the killer, you know?
Yeah, yes, very much so. And then he establishes the ground, right? Yeah, come after me. Come after me.
Yep, and this is actually, this film kind of holds a place in history now because it was one of the last films that was shot at the old Tucson studios back in '95 before this big, amazing fire destroyed the studio, virtually rendering it unshootable for future stuff.
Man, that was a great set, too.
Yeah, it was a great set, and a lot of these towns would get reused movie to movie. You'll see, like, comparisons. I think the town from Tombstone was used in A Valley of Violence. I think they were the same backdrops. Okay. You'd see these towns kind of place up because every Western town kind of looks the same, a lot of it.
A little bit times, but this has an authentic feel to it. You feel it without having so much characters. You know that, okay, there's a shootout. It's a contest. Everybody's going to be out there to see it. Everybody shut down shut everything down, and of course we'll have the saloon. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah. I think what I think Quick and the Dead really feels like is if you look at this interview that people did with Quentin Tarantino films, where he said some of his films are set in real life, and then some of his films are the movies that his characters would watch. You know, some of his heightened stuff. His Kill Bill is a movie that his characters in like Pulp Fiction would go to see. That's like something his version of insanity.
Yeah, I never thought of that.
I always think of like The Quick and the Dead as the kind of movie that gunfighters in the Old West would have seen if movie theaters existed back then. You know, they would have gone to see a movie like The Quick and the Dead because it's so heightened, because it's so over the top. It celebrates that lifestyle in a way, but it's never really realistic ever.
No, because there's a lot of small camera work where you just watch the mechanics of a gun being loaded. Yeah. Or you just watch the hand moves and stuff like that. So we're talking about it. It's a big overall piece, but Sam does take time just to film like the spool of a gun twirling, or just the small little actions or close up of the guns and pivot a little bit. So there's a lot more care of details in this movie. That I think that's why Sharon Stone recruited Sam, because he could do big scope, but also close up on guns and hands and get the little details that probably a lot of people would miss.
Yeah, and I think the most memorable aspect of the film is Raimi's direction. It's his vision of the film, because this is a very simple story. And, you know, like the worst thing a film can be is not staying with you after you leave. This is a movie that I feel like his style above everything else stays with you when you're done. I remember shots from watching this movie. They still run through my head now after having seen it again. It holds a special place.
Yeah, and Leo gets a great death in it. Everybody gets a great death in it.
Yeah, everybody who dies does, yeah.
Lance Henriksen gets a great death with it.
Yeah.
Very Sam Raimi kind of death.
Who's your favorite death in the whole movie?
It was Sam Raimi. I mean, Keith David.
No, Keith David's mine. Lance Henriksen's yours, or?
No, it's Keith David's.
Okay, Keith David's my favorite death in the whole movie.
Yeah.
And part of it is because both times I watched this movie, it shocked me. And I was like I froze in my chair because there's that great hole. Like, it's a giant hole in his head. It's so cartoonishly
and I think you need that eventually to remind everybody what kind of movie you're doing.
Yes, exactly. That's the constant reminder that comes in, is that, like, don't take it too seriously. We're having fun here.
Yeah, and then Russell Crowe shoots everybody from this and just doing that.
Yeah. And just at the end, let's just blow the whole damn thing up. So, yeah. So, what did you think of The Quick and the Dead? I'll tell you, I'm more excited for Doctor Strange having seen it.
Yeah, hopefully he goes in this town.
Oh.
I know.
Let us know your thoughts down below, what you thought about The Quick and the Dead and which Sam Raimi movie we should cover next. My mind's been thinking Darkman for a while, but definitely let us know what you think we should cover next and what you think of the finished film too. It's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite Raimi films. It's one of my favorite westerns. Probably one of my top 10s for favorite westerns. I just think the movie is so exciting.
It's really fun to watch this and then watch Unforgiven and then watch this movie.
Yeah, so close to Liberty Valance and True Grit in my recent watch list, and to hit this one up is a very, very unique style to it. But yeah, definitely thank you guys for joining us. Make sure to comment down below and like and subscribe too. They're two really free things that you can do that will just help support the channel and make sure you never miss an episode of the show. As we always point out, we do have a Patreon. If you want to cancel one of your cups of coffee every month, you can join the Patreon for as low as $1. But if you join at $5, then you can be on a rotating group of episode pickers who will pick episodes that we're going to talk about on future editions of the show.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for joining. My name is Kyle Goethe, and you can find all my film reviews at goatfilmreviews.com.
I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast, a podcast you can find anywhere on the internet.